Hey friends, thanks for taking time to listen in on a conversation Dick and I had with young American driver Ayrton Houk. As you all know, John, Dick, and I are strong supporters of American racing talent, especially those who hope to make it onto the Formula One grid someday. Therefore, we want to provide opportunities for developing drivers to share experiences and aspirations. Our hope is that you, our audience, learn from them and connect with their journeys, hear the minds under the helmets, and see the hearts under the race suits. Ayrton Houk is a driver Dick and I had the opportunity to chat with. As you'll hear, Ayrton has enthusiasm, confidence, and a lot to share. But before we get to the conversation, I need to take a moment to ask, have you subscribed to or followed the show on your favorite podcast app? Have you shared the show with your fellow F1 fans? If not, can you take a moment to do so now? For an indie podcast like us, that's how we grow. You taking these small actions. And we are growing because of you. The guys and I thank you. Hope you enjoy our conversation. Dick, are you excited?
Absolutely.
We have talked about a lot of different things in the course of this podcast, and one of them is about young drivers. And with us today is our interview with Ayrton Houk, who is a young American driver. I am so excited. Ayrton, you want to say hello?
Hey, Sabrina. Hey, Dick. Thank you guys so much for having me here today. I can't wait to get into this.
I would say all three of us, John, Dick, and I, have so many questions. And because of the purpose of our podcast is really to do fan insights into the world of F1, and specifically we have a passion for American racers trying to make their way onto the F1 grid, you are, I think, an awesome voice for us to have to pull back the curtain for our audience. So I don't know that a lot of people, viewers, fans, understand the full scope of what it takes to get on the grid. They may not realize all that you have to learn and develop, so many different skills, not to mention you actually have to have some talent before those kinds of developments going to happen. I want you to help the audience understand how you've risen through the ranks and what exactly, like something very practical. What does your training look like? Things like nutrition, fitness, and I think might be overlooked is even the mental aspect. You're a student. You told us offline before we started, you've actually got 7 a.m. class. So how do you juggle all of this in your life?
Yeah, no, it's a lot more than most people realize. They see the drivers, they think you just show up on race day and go out, but there's actually a lot that goes into it that people overlook. Driving the car gets very physical, so you've got to have very good core strength, very good neck strength, upper body. We don't have power steering. Steering wheel gets very heavy. We're hitting the brakes at over 1,300 PSI of braking force. So it's very physical. My training currently, like you said, I am a student. I go to Purdue University full-time on campus. And one good thing about going to such a big state school is we have a massive gym here, and it's free to use for all students. So I'm at the gym every day. I try to go at least every day. Maybe I'll skip a day or two if I've got a lot of homework or if I'm just trying to get some early sleep in. But I've currently got a 4 or 5 day split where I'll hit upper body for 2 or 3 days. I'll hit focus on legs for 1 day. And then I'll do some racing specific lifts on another day, like working on the grip strength for the steering wheel, working on my neck strength for the G forces. And that's become a really big part of my lifestyle. I've started really taking it much more serious than I had before. And one of the big reasons for that was being in contact with a man named Jim Leo, who runs PitFit. I met him when I was racing. I met him, actually, he's been a good family friend for a while now. And I was able to attend the facility in Indianapolis, Indiana, where I live. And he really put me on a right track. They get driver-specific coaching and workout routines. They do nutrition, all kinds of things. So PitFit really helped kickstart my journey for fitness. And since I've gone off to college, I've kind of taken it into my own hands and still go to the gym every day and really work on that. But as for nutrition, I try to stay as healthy as I can. Being in college, not a ton of money, gets a little bit iffy here and there. I might just have cookies for dinner, but That's only on a slight occasion. We've got a good chef at the house that we live in here, so he's doing an amazing job. He gets us really good, actually high protein meals. We get 2 a day, and then I'll go off and get my third meal somewhere else, either down the road at the deli or somewhere with my friends if we're going out at night. But yeah, for the academic part, it's been really hard, to be honest. I've now taken 2 gap semesters, and I'll be 21 before I start my sophomore year of college, which is a bit intimidating, but I know I'll be able to get through all of it. That's something we've really focused on, my family and I, is still getting this college education just as a backup if worse comes to worse and racing doesn't work out. But yeah, it's been difficult juggling all of these different sides of the equation here. It's all about the opportunity costs of what you're doing with your time. You know, I've got some resources online where I could maybe skip a class to go do something productive for racing, or when I actually do have to miss school, like I'm leaving tomorrow for New Orleans, so I'm missing Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I'm able to find some stuff online, get the homeworks done. I'm doing homework in between sessions when I'm at the track or back at the hotel after the day is over. But it's been quite the struggle, but it's all working out so well, and you know, I would not have it any other way.
So what are you majoring in? Is it stuff that you can translate into the world of racing, or are you looking at the post-racing life?
Yes, so it's actually kind of a both thing there. A lot of people don't look at the business side of racing, but I'm majoring in finance, and I'm taking a lot of business classes, and it's definitely working to my advantage when reaching out to partners and sponsors. It's definitely helping me in that aspect, and it's something that I've always really just been interested in. It's just the finance side of a lot of the world, not just racing itself. So that's what I'm going after right now. I had originally thought of mechanical engineering, but when it came to missing school and missing labs, it was getting pretty busy my first semester, so I ended up transferring from that into finance.
Well, that kind of leads to one of the other questions I had, which is about like mechanical engineering and equipment. I think what you said earlier about people thinking that racer just drops into the car and just drives is such a misconception. I wondered how much of even now are you trying to understand the technical aspect of the car or cars that you will eventually drive?
Oh, absolutely. It's very important for each and every driver to be completely comfortable and understanding of every part that goes into the race car. Because when you're out there on the track, you've got to understand what the car is doing and why it's behaving like it is, because you have very limited resources. At least we do. We don't have all the adjusters on the steering wheel. Like IndyCar's got the weight jackers. We can't even adjust our sway bars in these cars. All I have is a brake bias that I can adjust forward and backwards. So you've got to understand how the car is reacting and what you can do as a driver to make it react more in the way that you would like it to. Like, for example, if the car is understeering or pushing on the way in, where you turn the wheel and the car doesn't turn as much as the steering wheel is turned, you have to realize that you don't have enough weight on the nose. You can maybe hold a little bit more brake to compress the nose down, keep some weight on it. Or you can push the brake bias a little bit more towards the rear to get the rear to rotate a bit going in. It's all about understanding why the car is moving the way it is, and that brings a massive aspect of mechanical engineering into the car, or into the driver, because even though I'm not studying mechanical engineering, I've been fortunate enough to talk to my engineers throughout the years and really learn a lot about the cars that I've gotten the chance to drive.
Dick, as I'm listening to Ayrton, it's making me think of all of our conversations that we've been doing on the tech talks that we've been trying to have, and then hearing you explain the various aspects of design and technology involved in Formula One. And I just wondered if you wanted to chime in first. That was my first piece. But the second is when we've talked about various drivers and like the debriefs and how their driving styles. When I'm listening to Ayrton right now, I'm thinking those are all part of their skills that they developed over these years, and Ayrton's doing that now. Like, I could see where that's going to bode well moving forward into his career. Am I on the right track?
Absolutely. I mean, Ayrton, just so you know, I had a great time trying to explain the difference between the low shaft speed on a shock versus high shaft speed on a shock, and the difference of what that means. And it was like, high shaft speed, think about a big bump. Left it at that, right? But I mean, on the cars that you're driving right now here in the U.S., I mean, Are you using the shocks to tune your handling, or is it, as you said, hey, how I'm using the brakes is as much a deciding factor on whether I've got that entry push or not?
Yeah, no, we can do a lot with the shocks. Each, at least in the USF Pro Championships, all of our shocks are sealed from the manufacturer, but we do have compression and rebound adjustments that we can make to them. We just can't change the physical valving of the shock on the inside.
That's a good thing, actually.
But we do have adjustments. I don't have in-car adjustments, so it has to be in the pits or after the session. So, like I said, when you're out on the track during a race, you're not going to come in and ask your team to waste 45 seconds to a minute changing your shocks just to go 2 laps down, but be half a second faster. You're going to have to realize how you can use what you have while you're out there. But when it comes back to the pits, we are definitely working on the shocks. We're adjusting the rebound. We're adjusting the compression, just to really settle the car on entries or exits, especially with the bumps out at St. Petersburg on the street course. Shocks were a massive part of that track.
I would imagine.
And curbs, if there's curbs at some tracks, are much more elevated than others, so they could upset the high-speed compression while you're going over it. Or curbs are very flat at the other ones, so you can keep the car a little bit stiffer through the corners. But it's definitely a massive aspect of the setup that we go into every weekend with.
Yeah, I would imagine. The other question that comes to mind is typically, and I'm sure you experienced this at St. Pete, on Friday when you go out, the track is green, low grip, all that kind of stuff. How much did you chase the car over the weekend as the track gripped up? Because you had a lot of different series that were racing there, and I would think after every session, the track just got faster.
Oh, absolutely. But yeah, that Friday session, I don't think the track was even green yet. That was something else. We, luckily the USF Pro 2000 guys went out before us, so they took a little bit of the dust and the morning dew off, and then we went out, and that had been my first race session of USF 2000 ever, or I guess race weekend session. It was a practice, and it was also my first ever time at St. Petersburg. So not only were we chasing the car, I was chasing myself. I had to figure it out fast because we had a 20-minute practice session and then qualifying.
Oh my gosh.
So they were really throwing us out there, and the team did amazing. We really got after it. We focused on our marks. We focused on what we can do to the car, and we got a good practice result. I'm not sure where it was. I think like 14th. So I guess it wasn't that good, but we learned, and that's what practice is about. And I came in, I told the team how the car felt. They took those. We made some adjustments. We made a lot of adjustments to my driving. My coach, Colin Kaminsky, helped me out a ton. He had been there multiple times in multiple cars. So he fixed my driver's line. The team got the car perfect. And the second session I'd ever been on the track, we went out and qualified 9th. So we're very happy with that qualifying result.
It's a good jump. Yeah.
And we still continued chasing the car because, like you said, more cars are going out, more rubber's being laid down. And the thing about the USF cars, especially, I guess, not specifically, but at St. Pete, we would develop a lot of understeer when the IndyCar rubber was laid down. The rear end seemed to stick up more than the front end did when the rubber was down. So we were chasing that the whole weekend. And yeah, we never went out on track with the same setup twice.
That's incredible. So,
we need to rewind the clock for just a second. I have a question or
Yeah,
a
of course.
clarification. Did you say you had 20 minutes for practice and then you had to qualify?
Yep, that's it sounds just as crazy as when I read the schedule, but that's how it is. We didn't have a whole lot of time, and there were a lot of cars that had to go out. The USF Pro guys, us, Indy Lights, IndyCar, I guess Indy Next now, IndyCar, and there was also IMSA Challenge there. So a lot of different series sharing the track, which really made for an amazing event. A ton of people came out. It was a great environment. The show was amazing. It was very fun race, but a lot of racing to squeeze in, so keeps the drivers on their toes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other question, we didn't really explicitly say this earlier, but you've been referencing USF. Could you just say what that is a little bit for people who,
So that's
most of our audience is coming in through the door of F1. They may not know all these different competitions and series.
No, absolutely. So I compete in the USF Pro Championships presented by Continental Tire. That is the official series that I compete in. And it stands for like United States Formula That's the prefix. And then the 2000 USF 2000 car that I compete in is because it's a 2-liter Mazda engine that's in the car.
Okay. I think that's super helpful for people. Dick, I'm sorry. I think you were going to ask a question.
Having done the F2000 series myself, but totally different cars, totally different engines, everything like that. It's fun to hear how it's changed, going from a single overhead cam 4-cylinder engine to a, twin cam 4-cylinder with fuel injection and all that. Pretty cool stuff.
So you had mentioned earlier that you'd raced Formula Continental. What chassis were those? Because I had a brief run in a Continental a couple years ago.
So I won a Formula Ford championship and a Reynard.
Okay.
And then I've got time in a Swift S2000, a number of Van Diemen Formula Continentals, a Ralt Formula Atlantic, and a Ralt Super V.
Super Vs, those are some cars right there.
Full skirts on the ground effects, man.
Yeah, those cars are crazy. Those were some fast cars. The Van Diemen, I did get the chance to drive that F2000 car. That was fun. It was a good car. It likes to slide around a little bit more than you'd think with the downforce.
Yep. It really is a slidey car for sure. Entry push though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got to dial it out.
It's a good car though.
This is really cool. I need to now take notes, and Dick is going to have to explain all of them, and then we'll decide if that needs to go on our Instagram where we put our conversations out there, or I just make it a new episode, because you gave a whole lot of terminology, and I imagine our listeners are going to be saying, yeah, Sabrina, you just said it, because for the non-racers, non-stems like me, that was like a foreign language the both of you just said.
A lot of words thrown around.
It's great. No, there's no reason to apologize. That is so cool. This is so necessary for us to understand who are not racers. That only helps us to have greater appreciation for Formula One, because if we understand all that you guys are doing to get to that point, and or the other elements of motorsports, like they also contribute to the entertainment that we're getting. So I'm grateful that you guys even went in that direction. So help me understand, help the audience understand all these different driving cars that you're doing. It's all towards developing your racecraft, right? That's what you're focused on. How are you doing that? Like what does that look like?
It's all about seat time. The amount of time that a driver can spend in the seat of a car is development. And seat time can get expensive depending on where you're getting it from. So that's what's good about having multiple types of cars, because a lot of things transfer from the base of this is what it takes to drive a car. You get that down, you can go a lot of places. So currently, when I'm not in a car, I'm able to make use of a simulator that my family has acquired for me. It's been amazing. It's a pretty entry level simulator when you think of all the other ones that are out there. But it's been great. I've got a Fanatec wheel and Fanatec pedals, and just running iRacing out of my dorm room here at my fraternity house. And it's been very realistic, very helpful for learning the tracks before we go to them, learning the cars, and just getting an understanding of what it takes to be fast at the track before you're actually there. And when it comes to in-person development of the racecraft, that's all seat time. We've got a couple of testing days scheduled before some of our races. We can't do a lot of testing just because the testing costs really rack up quickly. We can't make all of the test days possible currently, but we would love to get more seat time, because that's what it takes to develop your racecraft. The more time you can get in a car, the faster you're going to be as a driver.
Well, Dick knows this. Like, this has been my thing I've zeroed in on in my frustration for our drivers that I see on the Formula One grid, is how little seat time I feel like they're getting, especially as rookies getting into the grid and testing. And we've been discussing this. Dick, do you have any thoughts about the testing and what you've even just heard Ayrton say?
Yeah, I mean, it really just kind of lines up with everything else that we've been talking about. And I experienced it myself. It's sort of like, yeah, okay, I'm running a Formula Ford. Where is there a track day that I can maybe sneak in and get, 40 or 50 laps of practice during a day in between the guys with their Porsches and their Corvettes? I mean, it's better than nothing, right? But is it ideal? Not really. But unless you've got just a mega budget to, rent a track yourself or maybe go with 3 or 4 other guys to rent a track, it's tough, man.
It really is.
Yeah. Just track rental alone, it's not cheap. And then you've got everything else that goes with it.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of teams like to get together and go rent a track 5 or 6 teams at a time to really cut the cost down. So that can be a very beneficial kind of relationship that you can get with some other teams to go out and go. But we also have restrictions on how much we can test. So that plays a whole nother role.
Why do you have restrictions on how much you can test? Is it to keep the cost down?
Yes. Yeah. So mostly for preventing cost spikes.
Wow. I mean, we hear about that in F1. I did not realize that even before that, there's a cap. Wow.
I'm not familiar with a lot of the restrictions on it, but I do know there's been like some restrictions on testing before, and I know there's a little bit this year.
When I was running my F2000 team 20 odd years ago, I made all my drivers go buy shifter cards.
Yeah, those are amazing.
Yeah. And I just said, look, you can't afford, as a business guy to be gone in the middle of the week, driving your car at a track 300 miles away, but you can drive 40 miles after work with your shifter cart and go out and pound out 50 or 60 laps real quick before you go home.
Exactly.
And it really helped.
Exactly. With almost the same exact power to weight ratio as the cars they'd be driving anyway.
Right.
Those things are quick.
They are.
So you both mentioned this, that motor racing isn't really cheap. So how are you, Ayrton, financing this dream? Like, is it sponsors? What is this? How does it work?
Yeah, no, I mean, you said it. It's really not. It's very difficult, and unfortunately, there's a lot of amazing drivers who won't be able to get their shot because of the barriers of entry. But I've been extremely fortunate. My family's been so supportive of me. They've been helping me out immensely. But even we can't do it at all by ourselves. We're not even close. So we've been able to connect with some amazing sponsors, investors, and supporters that have really made this possible. A couple of the biggest ones that we have right now are Binkley's Kitchen and Bar, downtown Indianapolis. It's a good friend of ours. She's been helping us out immensely. Cornerstone Environmental Group, Little Red Door Cancer Agencies, also downtown Indianapolis. Horizon Equine Integrated Medicine is a good friend of ours who's helping us out. The Team USA Scholarship has done a lot for me with getting me to some amazing places that I would have never been able to get to. And I'd love to go into the whole Team USA experience a little bit if you guys want to go down that path.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so Jeremy Shaw, who's been running the Team USA Scholarship for about 34 years now, has got an amazing program going. And last year I was fortunate enough to be selected as one of the 2 American drivers that wins the scholarship, myself and Jack Sullivan out of Ohio. We were given the opportunity to go over to England. We stayed in Brackley. We were there for 8 weeks competing with a team, Ammonite Motorsport, in the British Formula Ford series. We did one national race, and then we did a local race to prepare us for the Formula Ford Festival and the Walter Hayes Trophy. Those were at Brands Hatch and Silverstone. So not only were we racing, we also had some amazing experiences over there outside of the driving part, but we also got some amazing on-track driving with great international talent, because these are 2 of the largest Formula Ford races in the world.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Enormous. And especially the Formula Ford Festival. I mean, the list of who's who drivers who have come through that particular race. Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
It was great racing, learned a ton, and definitely developed immense racecraft being over in England.
Well, so then that leads me to the question, are you looking to go to Europe again? Because my understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is your goal is to get onto the F1 grid, right?
So that's a goal. Definitely a top massive goal for a lot of drivers, and it's becoming increasingly difficult. But going over to Europe, whether it be for Formula Ford again, we do want to go back and do the festival in the Hayes, because those were some amazing races. Going to Europe is definitely an option. We've been looking into something like GB3, which is a entry to FIA F3. It's an older F3 car that runs in England, as well as many European tracks. That's something that's similar, a little bit quicker than the USF car I'm in right now. So maybe like a next step. But there's great racing over there and great talent. It's just a bit more expensive from being from America. We now have to pay for the racing and to live there for the year. So there's definitely an angle of going over to Europe, but I think primarily we are focused on staying in America, at least for the next 2 or 3 years, while still developing racecraft.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate you being so candid as you are, Ayrton, about like the financial challenges for Americans to get onto the grid. Like you're saying that is one of like, that's a massive goal. And I think one of the things is I've learned from the guys, when we look at the grid and we see all these Europeans and we're like, well, where are the Americans? And our mindset is to help people to see why that is such a challenge. And you've already, by what you've just shared, you've already given one piece. It's just the actual getting there, financing it, living there, and how many people who, as you said, have racing talent, but may not be able to get that financial so that they can go there and continue pursuing their dream. Dick, I think it was on our race review for Saudi Arabia and Australia, you made us quote, you said there is a lot of racing talent in the stands. Is that the correct?
Yeah.
What you said the other day?
Yeah, there's a lot of really talented race drivers sitting in the grandstands.
Yeah. And unfortunately, right? Yeah. And so I'm thinking, as I'm listening to you, Ayrton, I can hear that you are doing everything possible to stay focused, to juggle so much. Your family's dedicated. You've got a team of people who are supporting you. And yet it's still an unknown. And I think that our audience should really understand and have both pride in people like you who are wanting to get on there, and hopefully you will achieve that. And when you do, that we can all say, wow, we heard what it took. But it's also realizing the sacrifices that you are making for this massive dream. And I wonder, do you feel that people are able to move forward on merit, or are there other things that come in that can impede them from moving forward?
Yeah, no, it's a combination, and I thank you for kind of going over that. It is a struggle, and it's been difficult, not just for myself, everybody who's going through it. You know, every racing driver out there is in the same boat that I am, whether they come from money or not. It still is the same price tag, so everybody has to figure out how to make it happen. And it's more than just the financial. We're talking about the dedication to time to being a driver. You've got to make other sacrifices that you wouldn't be making if you weren't following this path. So I think massive congratulations and admiration for all of the drivers who've made it to IndyCar, to IMSA, to WEC, to Formula One especially. It's very difficult, and once you make it, it's just, I'm sure it makes the struggle feel so much worth it because you're there. But there have been drivers, so moving up is definitely a combination of the funding that you can bring with you, as well as the talent you have as a driver. It's a combination. You have to be a whole package. You have to be able to present yourself to sponsors. You have to be marketable. You have to be able to be outspoken and really connect with the fans and bring a whole community together over racing. And you have to be able to go out and wheel the car. You know, you're not getting there if you're not wheeling the car around the track. You got to be quick. So it's really a combination of an entire package when looking at it from a team owner or from a series standpoint.
I definitely, when I look at our only American on the grid, Logan, I have such sympathy for him. I feel that, you know, it's a challenge to get to where he's gotten, and then not having had the ability to do all the racing like a lot of the Europeans did, where they did what you're doing, they did on their home tracks, right? Like a lot of the stuff that we're seeing. And so when people are kind of ragging on him, and Dick is even more sympathetic to him than I am, but I'm still very sympathetic. But and I think it's because he's the racer, you know, that he really understands even more than I ever could. But I want people to realize it's a hard leap to come from America over there, and how the deck is stacked against you. So the fact that he even just got on the grid is a pretty big deal in my book. Do you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. It's an amazing feat to be a Formula One driver. There's a limited number of grid spots and a massive amount of racing drivers. So to be one of the guys on the grid every weekend is just an amazing feat. So very proud and very honored to have an American there.
Do you feel that there is a pipeline of American drivers who could get onto the grid? If not, do you think there's something holding them back? Is it the things that we've been talking about, or is there anything else?
I'm not entirely convinced that nationality has a massive role. It's definitely more difficult to transfer from America. But if you have the skills and the funding and the network to make it happen, I think you're gonna make it happen, whether it's from America, from Spain, from England. It's just about, like we talked about earlier, the package deal that a driver can bring. And there's some amazing ladder systems here in America. We've got the USF Pro Championships that I currently compete in that really helps drivers move up from the initial step, the USF Juniors, to the USF 2000, to the USF Pro 2000, and then to the Indy Next Car. So it's a great ladder system, and developing those skills and the network throughout those is going to be very beneficial for a driver, whether they want to go over to America or over to Formula One or stay here in America.
One of the things that reading your bio, I thought was really interesting. You started off in dirt bikes, and it sounds like you went straight into shifter karts. Is that correct? And if so, that had to have been a pretty big jump to go from dirt bikes to a shifter kart on pavement.
Yeah, we're really taking it back here. The dirt bikes, the upbringing. That was some fun times. I've actually still got my dirt bike, and it's getting increasingly difficult to convince my dad to let me take it out in season. But I love the fall, even if we're not racing cars, because that's when I get the dirt bike back out. And you are correct. I didn't go straight to shifter karts, but I did make the jump from dirt bikes into go-karts.
Okay.
I started actually racing Yamaha's KT100 engines, carbureted, single cylinder, 100cc little two-stroke engine.
Yep, know them well.
It's unfortunate that series really seemed to die out to a lot of the other two-strokes now in go-karting, but I did Yamahas for a good couple of years, and it was only my last year of karting that I actually made the move to shifter karts. We wanted to get a feel for driving one-handed shifting and going down gears into corners, up gears out of corners, because I'd never done anything like that on four wheels. Done a lot on the dirt bikes, but needed to feel it out in a car type of environment before we jumped to cars. And it wasn't a massive jump. I had always had a knack for speed when coming from dirt bikes to go-karts. I just loved to go fast no matter what it was on.
Yeah.
So I didn't have a hard time adjusting to that part. It was more of learning that racing line, because the dirt bikes, I did trail riding, trail racing through trees. It was a very one line, not a ton of room. You're only going one line through the trees. With the go-karts, the track is 4 or 5 karts wide. You got to know where to put the cart and develop a driving line. And that's what I took some time to get adjusted to.
Yeah. So just a question, speaking as a karter to a karter for a second, did you notice a big difference in having to go from a KT100 with just the rear axle having a brake to a shifter kart where now you have 4-wheel brakes? Tell me a little bit about that. Was that a big transition for you?
Oh, massive. Absolutely massive. Plus the speeds, we are going almost double in the shifter karts, and we're braking in half the distance.
Right.
So I'd be going twice the speed of my Yamaha. I'd fly past my braking point. I'd watch it pass me and still be on the throttle for another second before I hit the brakes.
Yep.
And so that definitely took some adjusting to, and really realizing just how fast these things do stop. It's amazing. So I would need some time to learn how far I could push the brakes, but once I got it, it was just like any other brake zone, just a lot more fun this time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the first time I drove a Formula Ford in anger, I had just finished a big, I don't know, probably 40-odd race season in a KT100, right? And I stepped straight into a Formula Ford, and it was sort of like, I didn't know that race cars have like real brakes. And so it took me a year to really understand the brakes. And, in the ensuing time that passed, I kind of forgot what real brakes felt like.
Yeah.
And then got back in a shifter cart, and it was like, I'm starting over again. So, yeah.
I've actually got a similar story, but in the reverse way. I had been doing Formula Ford for about 2 years. I hadn't been in a go-kart for 2.5 years now. This was a year or so ago. And a buddy of mine had me out for some go-kart coaching, and they wanted to get a reference lap for data to compare to. So they wanted me to take his card out and do a couple of laps, feel the card out, and put something in that we can compare me to him on the data and see where he can improve. And I was used to the Formula Ford and some really hard brake pedals. I take it out. I get 4 corners in, coming up to the first hairpin. I do my 900 PSI brake hit from the Formula Ford, and with one single brake disc on a rear axle, the cart didn't seem to like it too much. Locked the rears immediately and sent me spinning off into the grass. So it was definitely weird to get back into a go-kart and realize, I can't do it like this anymore. We got to be a bit more reserved on this brake pedal than I am.
Yeah.
But same exact kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, exactly. No, I could absolutely see that happening. So you've done quite a bit of F1600. Obviously, you step from a cart with no suspension, no springs, no shocks, none of that. Mm. And then you step into something with probably push rods, springs, shocks, bars, but no aero. So
yes.
When you stepped into that F1600 and now looking back, having driven the F2000 car, do you think the F1600 is still a valuable teaching tool and platform for young drivers?
Yeah, Dick, you mentioned the most important detail. I'm so happy you said it. No aero. This car has to be the number one best type of car to learn how to drive in. I will stand by open wheel, non-aero, whether it's Formula 1600, whether it's something like a Formula V, Formula First. There's many racing schools, Lucas Oil School of Racing. They have very similar types of non-aero, non-downforce cars. We were able to develop a sense of the car and the movement of the car under you because you don't have the safety net of downforce. You have to make the car do what you want. You have to transfer the weight to the front, to the rear. Going into the corner, you're holding the brake to keep that front down, keep it from pushing out before you get to the apex. You're just feeling the car and learning exactly how a car should feel as a platform before you start throwing big slicks, big aero, big horsepower at it. I think it's the most valuable teaching tool for a young aspiring driver.
I love that. Yeah, I loved the Formula Fords when I was in them. It was just amazing.
Yeah, they're just so fun. I mean, It's such good racing, especially massive packs. I mean, the draft in those is gigantic. It's like they're holding a parachute. You get behind one, you just suck right up to it, and it keeps packs of 15 to 20 cars going 4 wide into corners every lap. It's insane. Some of the best I've ever had.
Yeah, there's a few videos out on YouTube of these guys racing F1600 at like Road Atlanta, with that long straight.
The Formula 1600 car it's a weapon when you're in a draft. There's people who draft past you just under the canopy bridge out of, I think that's turn 7 is the hairpin before the straight, maybe 8.
Yep, something like that, yep.
They pass you for the canopy. You get in their draft, you pass them back, and then they'll pass you into the brake zone. I mean, it's just, it's crazy there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I've always kind of liked my racing just a little bit loony.
So, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, oh, yeah. It's the best.
Good time.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and then, that's one of the things, Sabrina and I did a podcast that was just about aero. And, things that, right? And one of the things we talked about is that, aero makes your car faster, but it really kind of kills the racing because the turbulence coming off the wings and all that kind of stuff. You can't do that for the most part, what you can do in an F16 because F1600, because, I mean, let's face it, there's no wings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It really promotes close and still as safe as you can be in a race car, safe racing, because you can stay tucked up right under the gearbox of the guy ahead of you, and you're not going to lose any grip that you wouldn't have already had.
Right. Right. It's just brilliant. I love it.
I don't want to lose your momentum, but I got to ask this on behalf of the audience. I'm like basically taking one for the team right now. Where can we, those of us who are not racers, see this kind of racing that you just talked about?
Yeah, so the big sanctioning body for Formula 1600 pro racing is called Formula Race Promotions, FRP for short. That's who I competed with for the past 2 years, and they stream on YouTube occasionally. It depends on the series they're with for the weekend, but those are some amazing races to watch if they're with something like TA2 Trans Am. They'll have Speed Tour TV out there doing streaming, and that's some of the best racing you will ever watch. It's and if you don't watch it live, there's everything on YouTube. You can just look up Formula 1600, throw a track on there, and you'll see some amazing racing.
Okay, please continue, gentlemen. And pardon the interruption.
No, thank you.
No worries. Yeah, I mean, Aaron, it'd be like going to the SCUSA Super Nationals or Rock Vegas for the karting, right? I mean, It's just everybody is just 10/10s all the way. And yeah, they talk about, oh yeah, we're going to save our tires and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, you guys are not saving your tires. I'm not buying it.
I have to admit, I've never been to a SCUSA race or a national race of any sorts in that matter in karting. We did local shows only. That's all we could afford. And but I've seen a lot of racing, especially out in Vegas. Those races look crazy. Always wanted to go, but it looks like a whole different ball game than the karting that I'm used to.
Oh yeah. No, I don't know. You and I may need to talk. I wouldn't mind having you as a teammate in Vegas. So
I would love to drive in Vegas. It's been one of my dreams when I saw it.
Oh yeah. That's great. All right. So anyway, I'm going to refocus here. So you're a road racer, but you've got significant oval experience. I'm assuming on the dirt.
Both.
So, right? So that's really unique. Tell me about, what do you think the midgets taught you, and how do you apply what you've learned in the midgets to what you're doing now?
Yeah, no, definitely. Coming up from dirt bikes, I like to get dirty. I like to play in the dirt a lot. Whether it's 2 wheels, 4 wheels, or any wheels. I like to go fast and I like to get messy. So the midget has been an amazing tool. And actually coming up, we've got a race in Indianapolis at the Brownsburg Oval, Indianapolis Raceway Park, in the USF 2000 car. I'm very excited to see how this talent and skill is going to transfer over. The midget was one of the first cars I jumped into out of karting.
Mm-hmm.
And the cage and the heaviness of the cage and how soft our springs are really promoted a lot of body roll and something to get used to. So I was able to feel how the car sits on different corners when you're going in. I'd hit the brake a little bit, not too much, because in the ovals it's all about carrying speed. It's not really sharp brakes, sharp acceleration. It's really nice and smooth everywhere. So I'd feel it sit on that right front as I turn in, and as I start getting off the brake and throwing a little bit of gas in there, feel that weight shift all the way back onto the right rear, and you can. Mm-hmm. There's a split second where you feel the base go from front to flat again, and then the second it starts tipping towards that right rear, that's when you start giving it all the gas. Feel it out, and then you're just full throttle mid-corner, headed straight for a wall, but it'll stick because you got the banking there, and you've also got about 5 inches of stagger holding you in.
You're right. Yeah, stagger's a good thing.
There it is.
Oh, man.
So
that's really interesting.
Anyone who doesn't know what stagger is, on the oval cars, we're only turning left. So we don't have to worry about how well the car turns right. In fact, most of the time they don't even turn right. We're setting these cars up with a lot.
Oh, no. Hold on. Rewind that. You just said they don't actually turn right?
Well, for the most part, they don't. You have to be going about 1 mile an hour if you want any chance of getting front grip turning right, just because of how left heavy these cars are. I actually almost drove into a parked trailer at a dirt track my first time because I went out of our pit spot and I had to turn right. And I thought it would just turn right, and it didn't. So that was a very close call. I learned my lesson quickly. But these cars are set up to turn left and turn left well. We've got the whole chassis offset towards the left side, putting a lot of weight on the left. And our rear tires are 2 completely different size tires. Our left tire, our left rear is, I think, about 76 inches in diameter, and our right side tire is going to be
circumference.
Yeah. Well, no, it's actually, yeah, maybe circumference. I'm not sure. I just know the right side is about 5 to 6 inches bigger at every track we go to really promote how the car turns. If you can think about a red Solo Cup and you take it and you put it on its side and you push it forward, it's not going to roll forward. It's rolling to the left or to the right, depending on how you got it set up. And that's exactly how stagger works.
Oh, that's a great analogy. Thank you.
Yeah. So when you're going down the straightaway, you're really not driving the car straight.
Exactly. It's one long little rotation. Or if you do end up going straight, your hands are to the right. If you've seen the Indy 500 onboards, they'll pull it out of turn 2 and 4. They'll bring it all the way down to the middle of the track, or all the way to the left side. But their hands are straight. They're keeping that car in the most neutral way they can, because that's where all the speed is. And then they start bringing it back to the right. They're scrubbing speed because the car doesn't like to go right. So that's why they're bringing it all the way down and then have to come back up to set up for turns 3 and 1.
Yep.
Okay, neither one of you can see my face, but my mouth is open. I'm like, wow, okay, that's cool.
And understand when they're going into turn 3, what it was. Connor Daly was 243 last year going into turn 3.
It's
243 miles.
Full throttle too.
Full throttle.
They don't even lift.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, qualifying, you got to be flat out for 4 laps or else you're not going to make it in.
Yep.
Stop it. Oh my word. Okay, maybe I'll start watching this.
So what advice would you give to your 12-year-old self?
Yeah, that's a big question. You know, if I had the opportunity to even talk to my 12-year-old self and tell me where I've become or where I've made it to, I think he would be in shock to see the opportunities that I've been presented and the amazing things that I've been able to be a part of. And in fact, when I was 12 years old, I wasn't even racing. I didn't even know what racing was. I was still just doing my little dirt bike thing with the 2 wheels over there. I'd never even seen a go-kart before in my life. I think if I went and talked to myself when I was just getting into racing, I would have just told him to trust the process, stay focused on your goals, because there have been so many times throughout the years that I've just thought it's not going to happen. We felt like we're between a rock and a hard place, you know. So many things are against us right now. Nothing's going our way. It really looks like this is going to be it for us. And then out of nowhere, that one connection happens, or that one result happens, and so many doors are opened. So it's really about just trusting the process, staying focused on what your goals are and where you want to go, and making it happen for yourself. Because that's the only way you're gonna make it, is if you make it happen. You can't just sit around and wait for a door to open. You got to be opening them yourself.
Yep.
Ayrton, that is like so inspirational, because yes, that is you talking to 12-year-old you about in the context of racing, but that's really life principles. Don't you agree, Dick?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, what you just said, like, I actually kind of got a little bit of chills, because that's everybody's going to face adversity in life.
Really?
And you're going to have dreams and goals that you're going to want to do. And there's going to be a moment where you're going to want to give up, or it's going to look like that mountain in front of you. You can't scale it. And you just have to take it as it is and say, I'm going to do it because I believe in myself and I believe that I can do this. And so I just really appreciate you being so transparent. I know that's a kind of overused word, but very candid with us about what it's been like for you, and how now you see yourself achieving this level, but that's just only building the momentum for you to go further.
Yeah, thank you. It really applies to everything. It's just the things that I've learned over the years. It's all about your mental aspect of what's going on. If you sit around and you see what's around you and you just mope about it, then you're going to be there for a long time. If you see what's around you, you realize the facts about where you are, and you start acting on those facts and not just letting them overwhelm you. Just take them at face value and realize what you need to get over it. That's all, the only way you're going to get out of that situation. Yeah,
no question about it. And I think the other part is that when you do these things, I call it walking on water, right? It's supposed to be impossible. And so for me, going, even at my age, going and doing those things that I thought were impossible, what it's done is it's made me a better businessman. It's made me a better racer. It's made me a better whatever, maybe hopefully a better person. and you're actually doing the same thing for yourself. You just figured it out a whole lot younger than I did.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. It's even if I don't make it as a racing driver, the skills that I've acquired doing all of this are going to take me to so many different paths in life that I can use these as assets to go wherever I want. So I'm very thankful for all of the opportunities I've been given, and I know that I can use these in any aspect of life from here on.
Yeah, love that. That's fantastic. Yeah, and having a business background combined with a sporting background, it's a pretty powerful combination, honestly. It really
Oh,
is.
definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to interject and say that actually leads well into John's questions, which I know I said earlier I was going to read. But Dick, I think it'd be great if you read them, because especially you come from that same background as John with your own spin to it, of course. And so do you want to take the lead and ask those questions?
Yeah. So, what are your thoughts around just the whole, junior driver program that we see with so many of the teams? We see it with Red Bull. We see it with Ferrari, for example. And we see it really in some cases with the IndyCar teams, but where they're not as well publicized, obviously. What do you think of those opportunities?
Yeah, so those are they're a little bit different. They give the drivers the amazing opportunity of, while not competing on the Formula One team, they're working with the same people. They're working adjacent to these Formula One drivers, and they're competing at the top of their craft with amazing backing. And it gives them the opportunity that some other drivers definitely do not have, that when a opportunity at that team is available, they can take advantage of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's mandatory, honestly, at this time to be a part of one of these programs if you want any chance of making it to Formula One.
Mm-hmm.
Because those are the only ways you'll be able to take advantage of the opportunity. Like Ollie Behrman jumping in the car.
Yep.
Just absolutely amazing. And going out and going top 10, first race ever. It was great to see, and I'm so stoked for him. I'm excited to see him on the grid in the next couple of years. And it's definitely an asset that a driver needs to be able to acquire, because without being a part of one of these team driver academies, it's going to make it just that much harder, which is already an almost impossible feat of making it to the grid.
Yeah. It makes me wonder too, because obviously these young guys, they get exposure to the team and how they do things and all that. But maybe the biggest value, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me like one of the biggest values is that it gives them an avenue to become known with the decision makers that are within that team.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's got to be huge. I mean, like if you're wanting to go F1 racing, you want to be friends with Chip Ganassi and Michael Andretti and Tim Cindric,
You mean IndyCar?
Yeah. If you're in IndyCar. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yes, absolutely. You got to know those guys.
Yep.
And it's the same exact thing for Formula One. You've got to know team owners.
Yeah. What do you think the sport could do to make it easier for young talent to make it as a professional driver?
Yeah, that's a very big question. It's not as much the sport as just the way the world has gone. It's the people who have made it have so much talent. They're the best of the best, and they've got their seats and they've earned it, and they're showing why they deserve to be there. Until somebody doesn't deserve the seat anymore, it's going to be filled. And then there's 15 more people equally as deserving waiting on deck. So it's just the nature of competition. It's so many amazing drivers and so little seats available. It's a 1 in a million chance, and you've got to take that opportunity when it shows itself, because if you don't, which if anyone had the chance, they're going to take it. But say they didn't,
right?
There's 20 other guys waiting just after you, So it's not really, fault isn't the right word, but it's not the sport's fault. It's just the nature of competition.
Yeah.
I'm so inspired by you, Ayrton. Like that, instead of seeing the seats all occupied as a problem, you see it as an opportunity, and that it's only encouraging you to make sure that you're putting yourself into the best position to qualify for one of those seats.
Thank you.
That's not everybody. And so I think this is something that I've also been so admiring of John and Dick, is that when most people would see things as lemon, they see the lemonade option. And it's also helped me as a person who tends to get much more pessimistic very quickly. I'm wondering, Dick, do you think that's a racing mentality that is developed of seeing the opportunity versus seeing the problem?
Yeah, I don't think you get into motorsports and without being an optimist, right? I mean, because if you're a pessimist, you're going like, yeah, there's got to be something better. But I also think that that it, at least for me, and in my experience, what I learned is that I learned how to hustle from a business perspective.
Absolutely.
And so if you become an entrepreneur, the entrepreneur is the guy that falls off a cliff and builds a set of wings while he's falling. And so, I mean, you're constantly working like that, right? And so I think this sport, one of the things that you have to bring as a professional driver, in addition to being quick and able to, conduct an interview and, all those other kinds of things, is you have to be fairly canny as a businessman to be able to see opportunities and pull, even if it's pulling two companies together and saying, hey, you two guys need to be doing business. And oh, by the way, here's a great avenue for marketing this new business, one of those things, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you have any post-racing plans or goals? Because it's sooner, at some stage, you may be 55 years old when it happens, but at some stage you'll say, yeah, I think I'm done with racing. I'm going to go do something else.
Hopefully at that point, I will have amassed a network that is good enough to still conduct business inside of racing, whether that's through team ownership. That's a massive goal. I mean, that's a massive thing. You can't just go start a team. But say all goes well, we've got some good capital, some great guys that I know, and we go start a team. That'd be amazing. That'd be so much fun.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe coaching. I've done a little bit of coaching now for some go-karting kids. Maybe bring that up to the car level, to some more professional racing levels, and be able to pass this expertise that I've learned throughout the years on to those guys. I want to stay with cars. Say racing all works out and I make a profession in racing, I would love to stay with cars as long as I can.
That's awesome. All right, Sabrina, I'm handing the baton back to you.
Okay. Well, I think John would be proud of what you did. You asked his questions, and I think John had some really great ones. So let me ask you some more Formula One specific, because, that is our focus, Ayrton. You are connected to the Formula One world. You talked about going up to England and Brackley and Silverstone and stuff like that. Did you attend any races?
No, Formula One was, they were on the other side of the globe as us. So I wasn't able to watch any Formula One races in person, unfortunately. But I did have some great experiences, seeing Alpine, the factory there.
Nice.
Seeing McLaren, seeing Mercedes, and seeing Haas.
Wow.
All within the 40 minutes of where we were staying. It was insane.
Oh, wow.
The shops were amazing. They were so clean. Everything was just perfect in its exact spot where it has to be. The people all there were so focused on getting the cars to the exact specifications that they need. And seeing some of the cars, like at McLaren especially, we got to see a lot of different models. I got to see Ayrton Senna's exact MP44.
Oh, wow.
And get a photo next to it. They've got a bronze statue of him. It was unreal to see in person, as well as a modern Formula One car, because I'd actually never seen one before. I had never seen a Formula One car in person in my life until I went to McLaren.
Nice.
And those things are massive. I would not expect them to be as fast as they are with how big those cars look, but everything works out, so they've got to have something figured out. Those were some really cool cars to see, and the aerodynamics on them was just unbelievable. How detailed and perfectly oriented every little wicker and stray of carbon on those cars are. It's unreal to see in person.
So then let me ask you this. How did you exactly start any kind of connection to Formula One? Is that just part of your growing motorsport enthusiasm? And you said you were born in Indianapolis, so like the connection to IndyCar. But when did you ever start paying attention to F1? Because you're not young, but you're not old either. So in the sense of, it wasn't really a big deal when you were little, right?
That kind of ties into another aspect, just the American fan base, how much it's grown. My father has always been a massive Formula One fan. My mother got to name my daughter, so my dad got to name me. So that's where the Ayrton came from. He named me after one of his racing heroes, Ayrton Senna, and he's always been very connected to the sport. And I think my appreciation for Formula One came somewhere around 2011 on a Sunday morning around 8 a.m. when I wake up, walk downstairs to our kitchen, and we had a basement in that house. That was, the door to the basement was right there on the side of the kitchen. The door was open. I went to grab some cereal, and I just hear a screaming engine coming flying across the track at 17,000 RPM or however much they were back then. And it just caught my attention so quickly. Ran down the stairs to watch. My father was watching Formula One. And I think that's where it really sparked, is just every Sunday morning, hearing the cars all the way up in the kitchen and how high-pitched and how beautiful they sounded. That's really where the Formula One attraction came from.
I imagine, Dick, that really resonates with you, and especially with Derek. Yeah, it just makes me think of a little Derek at your house, your son, and his love for Formula One connected to you.
Well, and Ayrton, it's really funny, too, because my son, Derek, is named after Derek Warwick, who raced in F1 for years. And the reason we chose Derek for my son is that Derek Warwick had this massive accident at the end of the first lap at Monza one year. And this was back in the days when they had T cars where you could literally go and just jump in the T car and go. And this car barrel rolled coming out of the Parabolica. So, massive accident, right?
Yeah.
And they right the car, and I'm sitting there thinking, oh, this guy's dead. And no, he pops out of the car, and first thing he does, he reaches in, pulls the seat out of the chassis.
Oh, my.
Right? Runs back to the pits, steps it into the T car, and rejoins, for the restart. And he's ready to go. And I looked at my wife, who was, she was within a month of giving birth. And I said, yeah, we're naming him Derek. Anybody that brave?
Yeah,
that's my guy.
And I want to take that to just jump into real quick to how brave these drivers are. I mean, they're able to just turn that fear off the second they hop in the car and just completely cancel that all out and go focus on just what they have to do and go get their job done.
We agree. That's something that we have wanted to really highlight. So I'm really glad that you said that as well. It validates what we've been saying on our episodes. So let me ask you this, because I could take our conversation really in two different ways. One, I want our audience to get to know you a little bit more, like what makes Ayrton tick a little bit. But before we do that, I'd like to talk about the audience here in the United States and the growing attraction to Formula One. Why do you think that is? Is it just Drive to Survive, or do you think it's something else?
I think it has a combination of things. I think Drive to Survive, I have to admit, I have not seen an episode of Drive to Survive yet. It came out just after our Netflix subscription ended, and since then there's been multiple seasons, and I just got my Netflix subscription back when I moved into college. So I feel like so behind. I do need to watch it, but I do know that it has shed so much light on the sport and brought in a massive fan base for Formula One, especially here in America. And that, in combination with the multiple American events now here, the Miami Grand Prix, the Vegas Grand Prix, we've had COTA. I'm mad they don't come back to Indianapolis, even though that the race went how it did. I understand why they wouldn't come back, but the track has changed. I feel like they should give it another chance. I think a combination of the Drive to Survive series as well as the multiple races here in America is really driving their viewership over in the States. But one thing that I think we talked about, how they could be more open for drivers. One thing I think they could do to be more open for viewers is the streaming service. It's very difficult to watch Formula One over here. I've had a hard time without purchasing the Formula One streaming for the, I'm not sure, very like 70 or 80 bucks a month, I think is what one of my friends told me. I don't know if that's accurate. I don't have that money right now in college, but it's kind of difficult to watch it. I have to either wait for it to be over and watch it on a different streaming service, or pay to watch it live, or watch just the highlights when it's all over. But it is getting a little bit difficult to watch with all of these subscription-based services. I think increasing how you can watch it would definitely grow the sport even more than it is right now.
I think that's a great point. I don't really think anybody has really brought that up in any conversation that I've had about this, that the cost, you're exactly right. And especially if you want to engage a younger demographic, like you just said, the college age, the high schooler, the kids who are going out and who would be the ones who could go and start learning racecraft, right? And who could eventually be on the grid if they were being able to be inspired. You were very blessed. You had parents who watched it and supported you. And so for the kid who could see that race and realize, hear those engines, like you said. Well, from what I'm gathering from Dick and John, the engines aren't as sweet as they used to be. No. Yeah. That's what they keep telling me. Now, that's a little bit on the F1 side and your connection to it. I'd want to help our audience to really understand you a little bit more. Who are your racing inspirations? Is it Ayrton Senna or is it somebody else?
It's hard to nail down to one person, current or past drivers. I mean, Ayrton Senna has always been a major inspiration for me, being named after him and just how successful and how determined he was as a driver, is always resonated with me. And I think he's one of the heroes, definitely at the top. And some current inspirations are I've been fortunate enough in my career to have inspirations that are my peers. I'm racing against people who I've looked up to, and now I'm out there with them. Somebody who really resonates with me, USF Pro 2000 driver Simon Sykes. He's been in the same boat as I have been in. He's got so much talent, an amazing driver, and he just doesn't have a ton of funding behind him, but he's made it happen for himself. He got a USF 2000 full ride last year. He went out, won the championship, won the scholarship, moved up to USF Pro 2000, and he's only one step away from Indy Next. And he's making it happen for himself, and it's great to see. He's definitely someone I've looked up to, and it's just amazing to be out there racing with him. He's a great friend of mine too, and he's one of them as well. And then some other more famous names that some people could probably know, Michael Schumacher. He was one of my favorite drivers. Like I said, 2011, I was watching it with my dad. It was always Schumacher. I was a massive fan of him. And he's definitely up there. And Scott Dixon, the IndyCar driver, the Iceman. He's so calm, so collected. He goes out, he gets the job done. He's so consistent. And he's really inspired me to keep emotions out of the car, out of the trailer, and just take things at face value, analyze them, and respond. There's no need to get emotions involved, and it would only make it worse if you come off the track and you're mad and you start yelling, cursing under the tent, throwing things around. The team is trying to see how the car feels, and you're just coming at it with a very angry perspective. You're not going to get anywhere. You have to leave the emotions where they belong, which is not at the racetrack, and just take things at face value, analyze the car, how it felt, whether it was absolutely terrible the session and you got dead last, realize why it was, and then just come at the team with no emotion and tell them what the car felt like and leave the emotions out of it. So Scott Dixon has been very instrumental in helping me realize that a cool, calm, collective driver is going to be the fastest at the end of the day.
Do you see yourself as a role model?
I would like to. I mean, it's hard to answer that question without coming off as cocky or like very
I don't think so. I think anybody listening hopefully realizes that that's probably the complete opposite of who you are. What I'm taking away is someone who at such a young age is actually very self-aware and realizes the hard work ahead of him, and also very much wanting to take every opportunity available and see where he can go. So I wondered if you saw yourself as a role model, is that part of that temperament that's holding you back? Like this emotion you just said that you realized from Scott Dixon, do you see yourself as setting a role model persona for people who are going to be observing you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I really like to take time to speak to the next generation, the younger drivers, people who don't have the experience that I have. I really love answering questions and doing things that can help spread the sport and spread more understanding whether you're in the sport. I really like helping drivers specifically, helping point them in the right directions. I've been able to talk to many drivers coming up and kind of point them where to go. And that's in that way I can see myself as a role model, as explaining what it's going to take, where they should go, and providing assistance on this path, because it's difficult. It's very difficult to navigate. So in that way, yes, I definitely can see myself as a role model, and I hope they do too.
Well, let me ask you, do you do that because of like the various driving schools? Do you go to speaking, or is it really more as you're on the track, as you're engaging a young person, you find out that they want to race? Because are you involved in any driving schools? I think you mentioned one earlier, but I didn't get to write it down.
I'll answer both of those questions. One, I currently am not involved with a driving school. I've gone up through the Lucas Oil School of Racing, and they were amazing. I was fortunate to win the scholarship to their series and run a full series with them, and they did amazing, because they like it's in the name. They're a school. They're not just teaching you how to drive a car fast. They're teaching you what you need to be a racing driver. They have multiple talks and discussions with the drivers, telling them all that it's going to take. It's going to take more than just being a fast driver, like we covered earlier in this talk. But they've been an amazing asset to not only myself, but hundreds of drivers that have come up, and teaching them all of the different skills and aspects you're going to need to formulate a complete package. And then on the second hand, you asked how that role model kind of works. It's more of a personal thing. Like if a younger driver reaches out to me over social media or comes up to me at the track, I'll just take the time to get to know him, talk to him, explain what's really going on currently, where I've been, where we're headed, and what it takes. I like to talk to people.
Again, I've said it before now, I think at least 2 or 3 times, really impressed and inspired by you, Ayrton. It's really cool to hear someone at your age who's trying to go and achieve this have a very steady, focused mindset and a willingness to share. Like, your parents should be very proud, right, Dick?
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. Like, and it's clear you also understand what you just said about Lucas Oil and their program and what they told you need to have that full package, that you've taken that to heart and that you want to do your very best at this. And that's really inspiring. I think that transcends to any aspect of our life. Like, hopefully all of our listeners, they realize that even though we're all enthusiastic about the sport of F1, there's so many life principles that come out of sport in general, and then motorsport, and then what we're looking at in Formula One. So that's one of the reasons I was looking forward to this conversation, because I think you're giving our audience a practical application of some of these things that we talk about as just, 3 people who enjoy this sport.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 more questions, and then I'll stop in the interrogation.
Oh, it's all good.
Okay. Well, you did say you do like talking, so I take that to heart. Dick's laughing over there. What do you think most people miss when they're evaluating you?
Oof. Yeah. I'm not sure. I can't say I've had the ability to read minds, but I think that something that people don't take into account is kind of how I go about developing throughout a weekend or when moving into a new car. There's been multiple drivers who've been jumped into a car and immediately been right at the front. I mean, just natural talent, very quick drivers, very quick learners. And there's been times where I've been at judged events for a specific opportunity that I haven't shown up that day, and I haven't really been focused enough to develop quick enough that some of the other drivers have. And I kind of take a more steady approach. I go out a little bit more reserved when it comes to driving specifically, that I don't want to bundle the car up too quick, and I don't take that last 10% of risk that some other quicker drivers might be taking right off the bat. I want to understand the car a little bit more before I start going at it. And I think sometimes that gets perceived as timidness or lack of skill. But I kind of just take a little bit longer to get adjusted. And then once I'm there, I'm up with those guys. It just took a little bit of time. And that's something I've also been working on throughout the years, because like we said, when those opportunities come, you can't jump into a Formula One car and be timid and be last place because they're going to boot you. So I've been developing that. I've tried to get a lot quicker with my ability to get up to speed, and it's definitely happening. I'm able to get into cars like St. Petersburg, the 20-minute practice, and then quali P9. So, or actually P10. I said that wrong. We were P9 on the end lap, and then I got bumped by another driver. So we were P10 in qualifying. Sorry about that. I just remembered. But I think just my slower approach to jumping into a new environment is something that maybe other people can kind of take as timid or unskilled, if that's the right word.
And you kind of answered my question too, because the thing that probably takes care of that more than anything else is seat time.
Absolutely.
Right. The more seat time you have, the easier it is. Yeah.
Okay, so then here's I do have actually two questions, but I said I would only ask two. So I'm going to ask you my last one, which is...
No, keep them all coming.
Are you sure? Okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So this is more about me trying to get data, because I've been wanting to understand this thing I keep hearing about driving style. And I've asked this of Dick and I've asked this of John. We have all these conversations. And Dick he said he's going to show me on his Begin Again channel at some point that he does, which is so cool. If you haven't checked it out, you or our audience, you should definitely check out Dick's channel.
Definitely.
But driving style, what is your driving style?
Yeah, I think, it changes between the events we go to depending on a lot of things. I think confidence in the car, massive, absolutely massive. The amount of time you've got in the car, that kind of intertwines, but you can have not a lot of time, but be quick, and then your confidence is up through the roof. Sometimes those don't mix well at all. So you got to be careful. And so confidence, time in the car, and really like how the week's been. If I've had terrible sleep, if I'm very stressed, if I didn't eat enough in the morning, it all kind of plays a role. But I think as a whole, I try to be consistent and knowledgeable. I like to see the whole picture around me while I'm driving. I'm not just watching my lines. I'm watching the cars ahead of me. I'm looking in the mirrors and just realizing everything that's going on the track around me to best make a decision going into the corners. And I mean, everything's happening very, very fast. So most of the time you're taking educated guesses on what you're going to be doing when you're in a race environment. Now, when you're qualifying or testing by yourself, that's when you can really focus on perfect, pristine lap. Everything's perfect. All of your inputs are at the right time. But when you're in a race environment, everything goes out the window. You've got cars right in front of you, right behind you, people trying to pass you. You're making the best of what you can with what you're realizing. And this is getting very all over the place. But I think coming back to the driving style, I like to look at it as a big picture and just kind of make an estimate of the best thing to do in the car at that time. And sometimes it's a bit more reserved than some other drivers would be, but in the long run, it plays out, because last year in the Formula 1600 series, I didn't have a single DNF. I had, I think, very minimum, if not zero, crash damage the entire season. And I missed the first 3 races of the season and already had head start to everybody else in the field. And I came back to finish second place in the championship. So just having a collected driving style and focus on consistency and finishing. Those are the 2 things that I like to focus on when I'm out there, is consistency and finishing.
All right. So I'm going to have to ask.
No, go ahead. Please do.
So they're unrelated, but they're totally related, of course, to driving style. And the first one is, you can see a lot of guys out there who, the green flag drops and they just go.
Oh, yeah.
The guys that seem to be the most successful, though, are the ones who have some sort of I will say they know when to be aggressive, but they also know when to sit back and let a situation develop and be patient.
Definitely.
Okay. Patience versus aggression. What's the mental gymnastics that Ayrton goes through?
Yeah.
It's in the car.
Yeah, I like to, at least for this first race at St. Petersburg, it's a street course. I'd never raced against like most of this field, and there's concrete walls right on the exits and apexes of corners. Right. So can't really afford to crash this car right now. And the balance was definitely tilted towards the let the scene unfold and then assess versus the green flag drops, time to go.
Yep.
And it was definitely much more reserved at that track. I think when I get more comfortable in the car, comfortable with the people I'm driving against, because that's my driving style. There's 21 other drivers out there, and they all have much different skills that they're developing when they're in the car. So you got to drive differently against each competitor. And until I know how most of these guys drive, I'm going to treat them all as if they are more aggressive than they are reserved. So that just goes back into the survival instinct kind of thing. Just make it through the race right now. And I think my scale will tilt more towards the green flag drop, time to go, as I learn the car and learn the drivers. But right now it was a little bit more of a survival at St. Petersburg with those walls.
Sure, totally understandable. Those walls are intimidating. I've experienced them a little bit, not as much as you, but I've experienced them a little bit myself. So then from a let's think about a chassis setup standpoint. Is it, do you prefer a car that maybe on quarter entry might have just a slight degree of push to keep you stable and then go to maybe a neutral or maybe a little bit oversteery on the exit? Or do you like it to just, be real front end positive from the moment you turn in? Or what does Ayrton like?
I like a loose car.
Okay.
Coming from dirt, I'm always flying around. I like a loose car. And it's actually shown when the days get hot in the afternoons, we tend to be fairly quicker, relative. Obviously, everyone's slower, but we tend to be pretty quick when the track gets greasy and the cars start to slide around a bit more.
Yeah, you're more at home.
Yeah, exactly. Now they just got to find a way to get some dirt on these and maybe throw some treaded tires on the cars.
You're set up and ready to go. I love it. That's a great answer. I love it. All right, Sabrina, I'm done. Back to you.
That was so great. I was like, ooh, Dick, that's a great question. But I put myself on mute. I was like, yeah, I'm so glad you asked those. This is truly my final question. And I promise it really is. Well, I say that, then you may say something great and then I have to follow up. But my goal is for this to be the final question, which is, what do you hope, if you make it into the history books, will be written about you?
Oh, wow. I think if I make it into the history books, I hope it's about the Indy 500. Growing up in Indianapolis, that's always been such an amazing goal of mine, or such an immense goal of mine, is to win the Indianapolis 500, going out there every year with my family. And all of my friends are from Indy. So when I get the chance to race in Indy this year with USF Pro Championships, we're racing at the Indy Grand Prix with IndyCar, and we're doing the Oval out in Brownsburg. It'll be great to have my friends out there. And that'll be the one everybody comes to, is Indianapolis. So I think from a history book standpoint, the Indianapolis 500 title would be absolutely amazing. I think that's been my goal ever since I hopped into a go-kart.
I believe that you're going to continue to excel. It's obvious listening to you why these different entities have scholarship to you, provided you with these opportunities to continue developing your racecraft. And I think I'm speaking for John, Dick, and myself when I say we really hope to see you continue to rise, because you will represent the American racing community very well, wherever you end up, either in Formula One or in the IndyCar, or hopefully both. That would be great.
Thank you.
Yeah, that would be awesome. But thank you so much, Ayrton, for your time. Like, you really didn't rush us through this. I know you've got so much other stuff to do, but we really appreciate it. Yeah, I know. 7 a.m. class for this Indy podcast. He was willing to sit here and have this long chat. So we thank you so much.
It was my pleasure. And I would love to hop back on if you guys ever want to have me back. It would be amazing. This was great.
Okay, be careful what you're offering, okay? We may do that again. That would be great. Well, thank you. Dick, you want to sign us off today?
Yeah, I just Super, super stoked to be able to chat with you, Ayrton. I hope that sometime this year I will be at a race where you're competing, and I'll definitely come by and love to, meet you in person.
Please do.
So like in New Orleans.
Okay, friends, what did you think of our conversation? Drop me a line via email, sabrina@2guysagirlandf1.com. Can you help us out? If you haven't already, please take a moment to follow us and give us 5 stars on your favorite podcast app, as well as share this episode with other F1 fans. We know our growth is because of you, and the guys and I thank you. And with that, let me say, we'll keep talking and you can keep listening in, because we're just 2 guys, a girl, and F1. For John, Dick, and me, Sabrina, thanks for listening.